It's fair to say there is no other golfer quite like Sandy Lyle.
Because of the mental struggle of trying to trust myself.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be that emotional playing around here.
I only feared him. That's what every golfer was thinking when they faced Sandy Lyle at his best. Even the great Seve Ballesteros said something amazing about the quiet Scot. He called Sandy the owner of the greatest God-given talent in history. Seve went even further. He said if everyone in the world was playing their best golf, Sandy would win and he'd come second. Think about that for a moment. One of golf's most celebrated figures basically admitted he'd lose to Sandy Lyle. That wasn't just respect. That was fear wrapped in admiration. Sandy Lyle wasn't the loudest golfer of his era. He wasn't the flashiest, but he was the first British player to break through the biggest barriers in golf. And along the way, he faced 4 rivals who pushed him, challenged him, and helped define his legendary career. Sandy Lyle was born into golf. His father, Alex, was the club professional at Hawkstone Park in Shropshire. Sandy received his first set of miniature clubs at age 3 years old. Most kids are still learning to tie their shoes. Sandy was learning to swing a golf club. By 16, he was making his amateur debut in the Open Championship at Royal Lytham. That's remarkable. A schoolboy playing in the most prestigious tournament in golf. He won the Brabazon Trophy in 1975, then he won it again in 1977. These victories signaled something special was coming. When Sandy turned professional in 1977, the impact was immediate. He won the Nigerian Open in 1978. That same year, he was named Sir Henry Cotton Rookie of the Year, but that was just the beginning. In 1979, Sandy captured 3 titles. He won the Scandinavian Enterprise Open, he won the European Open Championship, and he cruised to the top of the European Tour Order of Merit. He was the best player in Europe. He proved it wasn't a fluke by winning the Order of Merit again in 1980. 2 years in a row, nobody could deny his dominance. What made Sandy special was his temperament. He had a cool demeanor that belied his immense power. Among the Big Five, he was the smash-it guy. He could overpower any course with his driving distance. Fellow professionals marveled at his ability. Ken Brown, a Ryder Cup teammate, called him a talisman. He said Sandy was the standard bearer that everyone was trying to catch. Sandy made golf look effortless. That's the mark of true genius. When something looks easy, you know you're watching a master. Now let's talk about the 4 toughest players Sandy Lyle ever faced. The rivalry between Sandy Lyle and Seve Ballesteros was pure magic. It was a battle of complete opposites. Seve was the Spanish artist with flair and imagination. He played golf like he was painting a masterpiece. Sandy was the calm Scotsman with overwhelming natural power. He made crushing a golf ball look easy. They traded victories throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s. They battled for the top spot on the European Tour. Every time they played, they pushed each other higher. In 1984, they met in a playoff at the Trophée Lancôme. Sandy won with a birdie on the first extra hole. That victory meant something special. Beating Seve in a head-to-head duel proved Sandy belonged at the very top, but their relationship wasn't just about competition. There was deep mutual respect between them. The ultimate proof came when Seve wrote the foreword for Sandy's autobiography. When asked about Sandy's talent at his peak, Seve gave that incredible compliment about God-given talent. Seve saw something in Sandy that maybe Sandy didn't even see in himself. The flamboyant genius recognized that the placid power hitter had a gift that couldn't be taught. It could only be given. Sandy wasn't trying to be Seve. He didn't need to be. He had his own path, and Seve, for all his brilliance, knew that when Sandy was on his game, nobody could touch him. Seve was the benchmark for European golf. He was the first to break through American dominance. He won majors before anyone else in the Big Five, but he knew Sandy had something special. The way Seve played was captivating. He'd hit impossible shots from impossible places. He'd recover from trouble with genius-level creativity. Galleries loved him. Opponents feared him. Sandy was different. He didn't need to recover from trouble because he rarely got into trouble. His game was built on power and accuracy. He hit it long and straight, simple, effective, deadly. When these two styles clashed, magic happened. Seve would dazzle, Sandy would dominate, and European golf would win. That's the kind of rival that makes you better. Seve didn't just compete with Sandy, he elevated him. If Seve was Sandy's opposite in style, Bernhard Langer was his opposite in approach. Sandy played by feel. He trusted his natural ability. Bernhard played by the numbers. He trusted precision and hard work. There's a perfect story that shows this difference. During a Ryder Cup practice round, Sandy estimated a yardage from a sprinkler head. Bernhard immediately asked a question. Is that the tee side of the sprinkler or the green side? Sandy and his caddy just rolled their eyes. They were thinking in feet. Bernhard was thinking in inches. These contrasting styles created fierce competition. At the 1985 Open Championship, Bernhard was a leader after 54 holes. He faded on the final day while Sandy surged to victory. 2 years later, Sandy beat Bernhard in a playoff to win the 1987 German Masters. But here's what's amazing. Those same contrasting styles made them almost unbeatable as partners. In the Ryder Cup, Sandy and Bernhard were a cornerstone of European European dominance. Their most crucial moment came in 1985. They were playing Craig Stadler and Curtis Strange in 4-ball. They were 2 down with 2 holes to play. Most teams would have given up, not these two. Sandy eagled the 17th hole. The Americans fell apart on the 18th. The European pair salvaged a vital half point. Teammate Ken Brown called it a crucial moment. He said it was Sandy's doing. He turned that match around in the 1987 Ryder Cup. Their partnership was perfect. They won all 3 of their matches together. 3 matches, 3 wins, undefeated. Sandy would hit bombs off the tee. Bernhard would calculate every angle. Sandy would trust his instincts. Bernhard would measure twice and hit once. The combination was devastating. Feel and precision, power and patience. Sandy and Bernhard proved that opposites don't just attract, they dominate. Bernhard made Sandy sharper. Sandy made Bernhard bolder. Together, they were unstoppable separately. They pushed each other to major championships. That's what great rivals do. For Ian Woosnam, Sandy Lyle wasn't just a rival. He was the standard. He was the goal. He was the reason to work harder. Sandy and Ian both grew up in Shropshire. They both came up through the amateur ranks together. But from an early age, Sandy's superior talent was obvious, and that drove Ian crazy in the best possible way. Ian admitted it himself. He said Sandy was always a great competitor. Sandy's standard of golf was a big influence. While Ian was growing up, he said Sandy was the standard, and he was grateful. Why? Because Sandy dragged him along. Ian's father remembered something beautiful. His son's boyhood cry was often the same. "I'll get you one day, Sandy Lyle. Think about being Ian Woosnam. You're talented, you're dedicated, you're working as hard as anyone, but there's this guy from your same hometown who's just better. He's winning everything. He's making it look easy. You have 2 choices. You can give up, or you can use it as fuel." Ian chose fuel. That pursuit defined Ian's entire career. It pushed him to a Masters victory. It pushed him to the world #1 ranking. Every step of the way, he was chasing Sandy. Their careers had unique connections. At the 1985 Benson and Hedges International Open, Sandy beat Ian by a single stroke. Close battles like that happened again and again. There's even a quirky story about a golf club. The McGregor driver Sandy used to win the 1985 Open Championship was a hand-me-down from Ian. Ian couldn't get the club to work for him, so he gave it to Sandy. Sandy reshafted it and made history with it. Imagine that. The club you gave away wins a major championship. That's how intertwined their careers were. Ian eventually got his revenge, so to speak. He won the Masters in 1991. He reached world #1. He proved that chasing excellence can lead to excellence, but he never forgot who set the standard. He never forgot who made him want to be better. Sandy elevated Ian by simply being excellent. Ian elevated Sandy by refusing to quit. Neither one would let the other get comfortable. Ian wanted to get Sandy one day, and eventually, he did get his own majors and glory. But Sandy was always there first. Always the trailblazer. Always the one setting the pace. The relationship between Sandy Lyle and Nick Faldo was the most complex. It was sometimes contentious. It was always intense, and it defined both of their careers. The friction started early. At the Kenya Open, Sandy was disqualified for using tape on his putter to reduce glare. Sandy believed for years that Nick brought this to the officials' attention. Whether true or not, the incident added tension to their rivalry. Sandy openly relished defeating Nick. In 1982, he beat Nick in the 36-hole final of the World Match Play Championship. That victory felt extra sweet given their history. Match play is different from stroke play. You're not just trying to beat the course, you're trying to beat the man standing across from you. Sandy beat Nick head-to-head when it mattered most, but their careers were impossible to separate. They were linked by timing, by talent, and by the fact that they were both chasing the same dream. Nick was rebuilding his swing with coach David Ledbetter during the mid-1980s. While Nick was in the workshop, Sandy was winning majors, but Nick's work paid off. By 1987, he was emerging as a force. By 1989, he was unstoppable. The most symbolic moment came at the 1989 Masters. Sandy had won the Masters in 1988 with one of the greatest shots in golf history, a 7-iron from a fairway bunker on the 72nd hole. He rolled in the birdie putt and did a little Scottish jig. He became the first British Masters champion. 1 year later, Sandy was the defending champion. His duty was to place the green jacket on the new champion. That champion was Nick Faldo. The moment was layered with meaning. For Sandy, it came after a shocking loss of form. He became just the 4th defending champion in Masters history to miss the cut. His reign was over before it started. For Nick, it was his first of 6 major titles. It launched him toward becoming Britain's most decorated modern golfer. In Butler Cabin, Sandy placed the jacket on Nick's shoulders. It was a symbolic passing of the baton. Despite their personal history, Sandy showed pure sportsmanship. That moment marked a shift in British golf. Sandy had opened the door, Nick was walking through it. There was tension between them, there was competition, but there was also an undeniable connection. Nick went on to win 6 majors total, 3 Masters, 3 Opens. He became Sister Nick Faldo, he became a legend, but Sandy was first. Nick pushed Sandy to be sharper. Sandy's early success gave Nick a roadmap. They made each other better even when they didn't particularly like each other. Sometimes the toughest rival is the one closest to you, the one who wants exactly what you want. That was Nick Faldo for Sandy Lyle. We can't talk about Sandy Lyle without talking about the Ryder Cup. Before the Big Five emerged, the Ryder Cup was basically an American exhibition. The United States won almost every time. It wasn't competitive, it wasn't interesting, but in 1985, everything changed. The Belfry hosted a Ryder Cup that would transform the competition forever. For the first time, all 5 members of the famous 5 were on the same team. Sandy, Seve, Bernhard, Nick, Ian. Europe won 16.5 to 11.5. It was Europe's first victory in 28 years. Sandy was a central figure. As the reigning Open champion, he carried extra weight. He contributed a singles victory over Peter Jacobsen. He partnered with Bernhard for crucial points. That victory changed everything. The Ryder Cup suddenly mattered. It suddenly had drama. It suddenly had competitive balance. 2 years later came the ultimate test. Could Europe win on American soil? No European team had ever done it. Muirfield Village in Ohio was the setting. Europe achieved the impossible. They won 15-13. Sandy played in 4 matches and earned 3 crucial points. His perfect record with Bernhard continued. Those Ryder Cup victories weren't just about team success. They proved that European golf had arrived. They proved that the Big 5 weren't flukes. They were the real deal. Sandy's contributions to those teams can't be overstated. He was the quiet leader, the reliable presence, the guy who delivered when it mattered most. Let's talk about the moment that changed everything. The 1985 Open Championship at Royal St. George's. British golf hadn't seen a home winner in 16 years. Not since Tony Jacklin in 1969. The drought weighed heavily on every British player who teed it up. Sandy entered the final round 3 shots behind the leaders. David Graham and Bernhard Langer were tied at the top. Sandy was at 2 over par. Most people thought the tournament was already decided, but Sandy had other plans. He made his move on the back 9. Back-to-back birdies at the 14th and 15th holes pushed him into the lead. The birdie at the 14th was pure Sandy Lyle. After a poor drive left him short of the Suez Canal, he hit a magnificent 2-iron from 220 yards. The ball landed on the green. He rolled in a 20-foot putt. Just like that, he was in contention. Then came the 72nd hole. His approach shot ran off the green into a swale called Duncan's Hollow. His first chip didn't have enough pace. It rolled back down to his feet. Sandy dropped to his knees in despair, his head buried in the grass. That image became iconic, the agony of potential defeat captured in one moment. But he composed himself. He chipped up and made the bogey putt. His final score was 282, 2 over par. Now came the wait. Over 35 minutes of agony as the final groups played in. Both Langer and Graham had chances to force a playoff. Both made late bogeys. Both fell short. Sandy Lyle was the champion golfer of the year. The 16-year drought was over. British golf was back. That victory meant everything. It wasn't just Sandy winning. It was permission for everyone else to believe. 3 years later, Sandy arrived at Augusta National in brilliant form. He had won the Greater Greensboro Open the week before in a playoff. He was ready. Sandy took the lead after 36 holes. He carried a 2-shot advantage into the final round. He was on the verge of becoming the first British player ever to win the Masters, but the final round was a roller coaster. His lead evaporated at Amen Corner. A bogey on 11 was followed by disaster at the par 3. 12th, his tee shot found Rays Creek. Double bogey. Suddenly he was tied. Sandy remained patient. At the 16th, he holed a crucial 15-foot birdie to pull back into a tie for the lead. He arrived at the 72nd hole needing a birdie to win. His aggressive 1-iron tee shot found the fairway bunker. From 155 yards out, he faced one of the most difficult shots in golf. Sandy clipped a 7-iron perfectly from the sand. The ball cleared the lip with ease. It soared over the flagstick and landed softly on the back tier. The slope fed it back toward the hole. It stopped 10 feet away. He calmly rolled in the birdie putt. Then he did his little Scottish jig. History was made. The first British Masters champion. Sandy Lyle wasn't the most decorated of Europe's famous 5. He didn't win the most majors. He didn't stay at the top the longest, but he was the first. His 1985 Open Championship ended a 16-year drought for British golf. His 1988 Masters opened the floodgates for a British dynasty at Augusta. Nick Faldo won in 1989 and 1990. Ian Woosnam won in 1991. Sandy didn't just win for himself. He won for everyone who came after him. He proved it was possible. He broke the psychological barrier. Sandy smashed through them, and once he did, everyone else believed they could too. And the 4 rivals who pushed him, challenged him, and defined him all recognized his greatness. Seve called him the greatest God-given talent in history. Bernhard partnered with him to Ryder Cup glory. Ian chased him his entire career and became great because of it. Nick followed his path to even more majors. Sandy Lyle was the quiet cornerstone. He was the placid power hitter. He was the talisman. He was the trailblazer. He wasn't the loudest. He wasn't the flashiest. But when everyone was playing their best, Sandy would win. That's what Seve said. And Seve was right. The 4 toughest players Sandy Lyle faced didn't just compete with him, they elevated him, and he elevated them right back. That's what makes a true rivalry. Not just competition, not just conflict, but mutual elevation toward greatness. Sandy Lyle's legacy is secure. 2 majors, 3 European Tour Order of Merit titles, World Golf Hall of Fame induction. But his real legacy is bigger than trophies. He was the first British player to believe it was possible. And because he believed it, everyone else could too. Each of his 4 great rivals took something from him. Seve took inspiration, Bernhard took partnership, Ian took motivation, Nick took the roadmap, and what did Sandy take from them? He took their best, he took their challenges, he took their pressure, and he used it all to become one of the greatest golfers Britain has ever produced. The Big 5 changed golf forever, but Sandy was the foundation. He was the bedrock. Without his breakthrough victories, the others might never have believed. I only feared him, that was the truth, and it's the highest compliment a golfer can receive.